When you're ready.
With the succession of smart devices and convenience-based automation, at what point will these addicting commodities hinder the natural evolution of humans? From the given artifacts, I drew a connection between how to build a resilient future using ancient wisdom and the migrant mother photo. The themes that I drew from these artifacts were the sustainable architecture of the Building Resilient Future TED Talk. She was explaining in the southern wetlands of Iraq, the water-based civilization who used cassava reed as a form of construction material and food for both the humans and the water buffaloes living in the environment. So, sustainable architecture, they have one thing to use, and that's all they need. Absence of commodities. They're only using one thing, they're not looking for more things to make for themselves. For the migrant mother, the themes I drew from that are that you have a hardship. You have hardships that are caused directly from commodities. So the stock market, the crash of the stock market is pretty much, money and buying stuff and goods and everything. And a lot of that has to do with commodities and basic things that we seek in our day-to-day lives. And from the photo of the migrant mother, we've been shown that too much or an addictive seeking of these commodities can really quickly lead to extreme hardship in America, even when we think that everything's all right. So I've connected these two together to show that these tribes that don't have any commodities are doing just fine, and they're not experiencing, even if they are experiencing hardships, they're using that hardships of the environment to build their own lives, while that is the opposite for our kind of capitalist society in America. So that brings me to understand the issue of hedonistic convenience. So, what is hedonistic convenience? Hedonism is defined as the pursuit of pleasure, sensual self-indulgence. That's like obtaining as much pleasure at the moment being as you can, not regarding anything else, not regarding the implications that it might have on the future or our health. And then convenience, similarly to hedonism, is the state of being able to proceed with something with little to effort or difficulty. And this is like, you look at America and you see we have stores named convenience stores, like literally named convenience stores, with plastic water bottles and everything else you can think of that is probably will eventually sit in the ocean and kind of pollute and all that. So I got this quote from the book Subliminal. And the quote says, in a recent experiment from Antonio Rangel and his colleagues showed that people would pay 40 to 61% more for an item of junk food if, rather than choosing from a text or image display, they were presented with the actual item. So this is kind of resembling the idea of a hedonistic convenience in the fact that psychologically, just based on this study, we naturally will will seek into the convenience and hedonism of these commodities without thinking twice about it. So that leads me to my investigative question, which is, how are modern commodities affecting human development? I want to bring the example of Project Willow, with that being that 499 acres of Alaska's land was purchased for the pursuit of oil. And you can imagine the animals and their environments around that would be substantially impacted, which is something that isn't great for the environment, biodiversity, etc. So my proposed solution is to preserve the environment. Obviously this is hard, but I think the more commodities that we make for ourselves, the less resilient we become, there's so much automation nowadays that you go to you don't walk to the library anymore to read a book to gain knowledge. You just do a quick Google search and that's it. It lasts 1 second. There's not much resistance or grit in the effort of pursuing that information. And then I think the second thing is that we should definitely rethink capitalism, because I think capitalism is a big contribution to these commodities that are very hard to resist, no matter who you are. I think laws should be implemented that ban the advertisements from using psychological tricks in order to increase the rate of buying the product. Like I showed in the earlier quote, these intensely addictive advertisements can make you just want to buy and want to indulge yourself in these commodities. And I think our government within the kind of capitalism system is taking advantage of that really poorly and not seeing the fact that it's really damaging our environment by doing that. Benefits of this is that obviously less pollution, better for our earth. We already have really bad problems with pollution and global warming and all that. So be greater biodiversity. You'd have, not just for humans, but for the whole animal kingdom, we would all be able to thrive effectively, throughout with maybe even, taking advantage of your environment to kind of thrive and prosper. And then the limitations to the solution is that obviously there's great difficulties with changing the current governments and laws and regulations. As we can see from any of the Supreme Court cases nowadays, that just getting a bill to go, just getting something to go up to the Supreme Court is a big thing in and of itself. So it's really hard to get these changes actually implemented. We can talk about it all day, but it's hard to make it happen. And then another thing is that you could view this as a limitation, but I don't really view it as that. Is that you have to be more responsible for yourself and more like, you think back to like the hunter-gatherers, all the responsibility was on us for our survival. And now we're pretty much laid into the world and kind of helped along with everything, and there's not a lot of responsibility we have upon ourselves that can make us more resilient. And that is all I have. Thank you.
Well, that was soundtrack of
Yeah. Clapping sound.
clapping sounds. A couple of questions. How did your research question evolve as you moved through the research process?
At first, my research question revolved around dealing with my research question evolved around how ancient techniques of resilience compared to modern techniques of resilience. And as I was going about doing that research, I found that I think it would be more interesting to attack the approach of commodities in our modern contemporary society, opposed to comparing the strategies of ancient resilience and modern resilience.
Okay. What additional questions emerged from your research, and why are they important?
Additional questions that emerged from my research were, all sorts of things. Anything from the impact of social media. That's a huge, social media and technology, that's kind of a huge topic among the commodities umbrella that I didn't really dive into, but that's a whole thing in and of itself. The education system, that's another thing that is arguably, flawed in some ways. That can be, just the act of teaching kids when they're young and how that affects them as they grow up.
Okay, all right, thank you.